Hello, welcome to Life Under Lockdown. We're back once again to the eternal city in Rome, and we're joined by an Irishman, Conleth Burns. Welcome, Conleth.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
First of all, it's been a great coincidence today that I'm talking to you on the feast of St. Conleth. What about that? Can you maybe tell us who St. Conleth was?
So St. Conleth was an Irish bishop. He was the bishop of the area at the minute in Kildare, the county of Kildare, Bishop of Newbridge at that time. And basically he was a hermit. He was an artisan. He was a metal worker, basically. And they did some sort of manuscripts, and like many monastic settlements in Celtic Ireland, or in the Celtic world, not only in Ireland but also Scotland, he brought these manuscripts, these gospel manuscripts, to life in different art forms. I think that was basically his role at that time. And then at a certain point he became the Bishop of Newbridge, and at that point he encountered St. Bridget, who he then basically enabled her to become the first, at least to the best of my knowledge, when I studied A-level Celtic church history, he became the bishop that enabled her to be the first female monastic founder in the Celtic church, and probably in the world, in that kind of, because this type of monasticism is inspired a lot by the Celtic church, I'm sure you know. And he basically enabled her to become this well-known monastic founder, and then after that things moved on. So my parents chose this name because my mum had a teacher in her school. She went to Loretto School in County Donegal, and she had a teacher called Sister Conleth. So it was a nun called Conleth, and I always like telling people the story of how I'm named after a nun, and they're like, can nuns have male names? And I'm like, yeah, they can. My sister's named after another nun who was a teacher of my mum as well, Sister Enoch. So that's where we have the name. But the interesting thing is actually here. I had actually forgotten about the fact that it's the Feast of St. Conleth today. It's been very busy in the last few weeks. But in Italy, feast days are the feast day of your name is a very important event. It's something that everyone sends you greetings, like birthday greetings and somewhat, and on that day. So yeah, anyway, that's where I'm at the minute.
No, that's fascinating. As I say, Ireland, we owe so much to the ancient faith of the Irish, an island of saints and scholars, and certainly you're following in that vein. You know, you are a scholar, you studied at Oxford and you studied law at Oxford, and you're now working towards sainthood. Well, hopefully once your life is on this mortal coil shifted. But part of your journey in faith is that you're a member of Focolare, and that's a big global family of faithful lay Catholics. Can you maybe explain to us in so many ways what actually is Focolare?
It's quite a difficult question to answer a lot of the times, and I mean, I've tried to answer this question more because it's important to communicate clearly these things. But it's one person. There's a Jesuit scholar who interviewed Kerr Lubick once, and he said, describing the Focolare is like nailing jelly to the wall. It's very difficult to describe. Basically, it started in 1943 when Chiara Lubick consecrated her life to God in wartime Trent in northern Italy, and she understood this kind of call, and then it was a collective call as well. So it's kind of a collective spirituality that exists, and in that time, it became clear to them that their characteristics should be about building unity, and that they take this sentence of Jesus, the last prayer of Jesus, the last testament of Jesus, that all may be one. They take that, or they would take that, as the kind of driving force behind them. So from that, so in 1960, it became an official movement of the Catholic Church. So it's governed within the Catholic Church, but among its members are not only Catholics. So it kind of has this Catholic, so it's governed by the Catholic Church, but in that kind of very universal sense. So there are members from different Christian denominations, but also members from other faiths. And they have, there's kind of a, as time has moved on, there are branches within the movement, and for young people and for older people, for married people, for consecrated people. But then also in after the 1990s, basically, there was this drive to look at how can we bring this vision of that all may be one into the world. So they developed dialogues. It had always been there from the beginning, but these dialogues, ecumenical dialogue first, then interreligious dialogue, then dialogue with people with atheists, then dialogue with the world at large, dialogue with the contemporary world. So she started different works of a united world in economy, in economics, in politics, in sport, in psychology, in architecture. So there are these things that in Italian is called inundations. It's a very hard word to translate, actually, because inundation is a flood or a river. But it's this kind of thing, actually this vision that we had, this wanting to build a united world, is something that we can bring into all areas of life. And so after I finished my degree at Oxford, I wanted to have a bit of a break from the kind of continuous studying for a long period of time. And the opportunity came to work here for the United World Project in Rome. So it's a project of the Focolare movement, where we work with different organisations and also across all of the different realities of the Focolare movement in the Catholic Church and other churches, with different groups from all over the world, from faith groups and non-faith groups, to try and think about ways we can build a more united world. Because if we want to respond to that call of Jesus, that all may be one, we need to really try and do something about it. It's not enough just to say we want to build unity and not do anything about it. There's a need to do something about it, and that's what we're doing in these days. Then we're working.
You're doing this United World Project. This year, 2020, is a bit different given the state of play of the global pandemic. What sort of things are we seeing from this project? When is it starting, for example? Has it started already?
So we're in the middle of, the United World Project is the project that we're working for, and every year we have this thing called United World Week. So in 1995, the young people of the Focolare movement launched a thing called United World Week. So it's like we have a week to focus on something. There are many organisations, many churches also have a mission week, or they have, there are various different moments in the year where we say, we want to focus on this. And they said, this mission that we have to build a more united world, we want to focus on this as well. And so let's make a United World Week. So the United World Week started in 1995, or the year after, and this will be 25 years since that this year. And we were supposed to, we had planned, we booked our flights to go to Korea, because this year was meant to be there. Every year there's an international event for United World Week in a different continent. And this year was going to be in Daegu in Korea, which was right beside actually the outbreak in South Korea at that time. So obviously today we're on the 55th day of quarantine in Italy, and it became very clear to us before even the quarantine started that we wouldn't be able to do that. And it took a while, I suppose, to think about how we changed the structure or how we changed the form of United World Week a bit. Because, so we knew that there was a responsibility to discourage people from meeting. Firstly, in many countries in Europe, that is not legal at the minute to do, so that was a very easy decision to make. But in other countries around the world, it took a while basically when the pandemic was announced by the World Health Organization, when it moved from epidemic to pandemic, we understood, this is going to have to go online or in another form. And just right around that time, Pope Francis had this, I don't know if you'll remember the Urbi et Orbi message at the end of March, and empty St. Peter's Square, he gave this message, and he actually he used this prayer of Jesus, that all may be one, within the Urbi et Orbi message, but he also talked about using this as a time to say, well, what is really necessary? Let's search for what is really necessary. The structures he set up in the Vatican are trying to look at that in the integral development. These this his kind of response to the coronavirus. But for us, we're like, okay, well, we think unity is necessary. We think this vision of a united world is necessary. And for the last 12 months, we've been working on a campaign called In Time for Peace, where we're looking at how we can build a more united world through initiatives through peace, justice, and human rights. And so we were like, we have to do something about this. And it was nice because we launched, so we decided that we were going to have the United World Week. We weren't going to cancel it. We had a meeting at the minute when the World Health Organization declared the pandemic, and we said, okay, we have to do this. It's going online. And then within a few days, we were communicating to the people all around the world. And actually, what happened then was we've had an incredible response from our groups of people all over the world who said, okay, we want to do something here. And so there's been 521 online events that are happening this week that are managed. Some are managed from here in our house here in outside Rome, and others are then managed locally. And so we've had this like mosaic of events for United World Week, which is basically a lot of people saying we think unity is necessary at this point in time, and we think the response to coronavirus has to be a response which brings people together. You know, if we want to answer that so I often say this prayer of Jesus is a bit like a question. I don't know what you're going to do about it. It's something in Scotland and Northern Ireland, I think we're like quite good at saying, okay, if someone says something like, well, what are you going to actually do about it? And in that prayer of Jesus, that will maybe one, well, what are you going to do about it? This has been the response this week. We, at this time when we're all at home, have found a way to connect more than ever before. And it's been actually the most connected, most global United Week we've ever had. And that's been something that's been really nice to see in the last few weeks.
No, yeah, I actually agree with you totally there for the need for unity, but also your point about being more connected. I certainly am more connected with my family, friends, and even people who I've never met before, like yourself, for example, for the first, I'm able to connect with people across Zoom and other sort of networks, which is a real blessing. Do you see this as bearing fruit this year more than in previous years, given that there is that global, aim for unity?
I mean, I think so that when I was asked this question a couple of days ago, and they said, okay, well, how did coronavirus change this week? And they said, okay, I answered, okay, it changed the form, because usually we have these online events in person. But more than anything, it changed the context to the United World Week. And it said, okay, we need to talk about unity at this time, because actually the global response to the coronavirus has been patchy at best. And there's been, there's been a lack of structural international solidarity. So on Saturday, on the 2nd, we had a TV programme which we've been working on, produced by a team of about 100 people, all at home in all of the continents around the world. And we had an interview there with a professor from, we had two really interesting thoughts from one academic in Spain and one academic in Japan, who's Korean. And the academic in Spain said, okay, well, actually, the coronavirus response has been relatively weak from an international cooperation point of view, and we need to respond with having this feeling that we're a human family, and that we need to think, okay, well, the pain of all of the countries in the world, the places where they're really not prepared to deal with a crisis on this scale, we need to think of that as our problem as well, and we need to think together as a family would come together and try and solve a problem. We need to do that on a global scale. And the international relations expert in Japan, Professor Familia, she made a really interesting point where she said, okay, in international relations, we have this idea of me first. So, we have America first, we have Europe first, we have Britain first, we have all of those kind of things. And they all say, okay, first, me first, my community first, this kind of very notion. She said, well, actually, what we need to do is change what we mean by me, open that up a bit. And I think that happened a bit this week, when this kind of vision of me. So, we had people who don't speak these languages. So we had a lot of the events were happening all over the world, and they were one language events. And then people were like, well, we want to connect people from all over the world because we can. We're at home. We don't have to take a flight. We don't have to pay loads of money. We can just go to people who are lucky enough to have the ability to be connected digitally. It's important that you remember there are a lot of people who aren't able to connect digitally. And we've been trying to find ways also to reach those people. But the people who can connect digitally, we want to find ways of people we want to find ways that they can connect with people all around the world, that we can expand this definition of me first. But actually, if we have me as the whole of humanity is the message of this week, maybe it's a time where, like, it's not only it's not an idealistic thing, but it's the most pragmatic thing to do, because coronavirus knows no borders. It spreads between that, and we need a global way of, if we want to be protected from coronavirus, if we want to beat this virus, then eventually we need a vaccine, and that requires a global effort, because once all the world has been rid of coronavirus, then we'll be safe. The only way we can do that is if we all come together. So this week has been really interesting because it happens in the context of this wider health emergency, global health emergency that's there, and people say, okay, well, actually this United World Week, this unity business is actually something that we could do with talking about a bit more, and not only talking about it, but actually doing something about it.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree, and it's a very hopeful movement. It's something that we do need at this point in time. Finally, how would you advise people to cope with this lockdown? How are you, for example, you're an Irishman abroad, you're in Italy, in a foreign country, you might have a community there. How would you advise people, what's your coping strategy through this lockdown?
So our lockdown here has been relatively severe. So in Italy, there's been a very severe lockdown for the last 55 days. And in this, so I live in a small city outside Rome called Grottoferrara. It's about 1 hour from the centre of Rome. And we have had a 200 metre from our house restriction. So it's not possible to leave. I've left once to go to the shop in this time because we've been working together and stuff. I mean, I find myself very privileged as well. Also, in this moment, we have a house here connected with the work I'm doing with the Native Work Project. We have a garden, we have food, we have all of this kind of stuff. And in the last week, when we were producing this TV program that you can find on the Native Work Project website, I had the chance to talk to people from all over the world, to interview people in India, in South Sudan. I had the chance to talk to people in Ecuador, in Cameroon, in all these places around the world, in Syria also. And it was good to think of these. So personally, it's a restriction on my freedom here, okay? But actually, the protection that we have here is very good. If we can cooperate, our health systems can cope with this. We have the capability of giving people the best chance at surviving beating coronavirus. But it's also a moment also to open up our hearts and our heads a bit to the suffering that's around the world, to see the inequality that exists around the world. And when I was speaking to these, I spoke to Rahul, who's from Bandra in Mumbai. And this is a kind of a very disadvantaged area. And he has worked along with Christians, Hindus and Muslims to cook for 100 migrant workers 2 times a day. Because in India, the lockdown happened overnight, which most lockdowns, it's the most sensible strategy to have a lockdown overnight. But the impact of that was that a lot of migrant workers who are there for a few days in Mumbai were closed there, so they had no home, had no food and these kind of things. So I think what has been the biggest help for me in coping with coronavirus is this chance to actually encounter the whole world from my home, to speak to these people and say, okay, let me understand their suffering as well. Let me try and see if I can do something about it. I was also in the first few weeks of lockdown, because coronavirus hit Italy a bit before it hit the United Kingdom and Ireland. I kind of saw some of the kind of solidarity projects that were happening here and whatever. And in the village I'm from in Northern Ireland, called Armoy, I was like, okay, we need to set up some sort of systems there. So I'm still involved with the work that we do as a community association in our village. And I was like, let's set up a support group. And it was in the first few weeks to help those people at home, the community that I love an awful lot. We set up a support group, and there are some brilliant volunteers there who are doing shopping for people, who are cocooning, who are socially isolating, over 70 category particularly. We have people who are cooking meals for them a few times a week. We had someone who did the Easter Bunny. Are having an online talent show in these days. So there's a real community spirit. So the first thing that really helped me was to try and see, well, what can I do from here to go there? Instead of just saying, oh, I'm locked in here, I can't move 200 meters from the house. I can actually be at home effectively, because even if I was at home, I wouldn't be able to go anywhere because we have to socially distance. We have to stay at home and keep to essential movement. So it made me feel more at home, this ability to help there. So did some technological support and these kind of things. So those are the first few weeks, I'd say, that kind of help them with home. And then afterwards, in this United World Week, it's being able to encounter the world. So I think what the advice I could give, or at least the experience I can offer, is to try and find those opportunities to encounter either home or the world. And that can help a bit if we have the methods, if we have phone, if we have Zoom, there's all of the different types of video calls and whatever we can do, or writing, or whatever it may be. We can try and find a way of encountering people, because we need to physically distance, because we need to stop the spread, and that physical distancing that we do saves lives. We know that for a fact. But it doesn't have to mean that we have to be distant from people. We can actually be very close to people during this, and actually we need to be very close to people during this. So that's, I think, what I'd say. And it's a bit also what the message of United World Week is this week. That's what we're saying, okay, we're physically isolated, and that's fine, and it's actually the best thing that we can do. But we need to still have this connection with people, and need it now more than ever before. So we hope a bit that this is a contribution of this week.
Thanks very much. I hope this encounter was adding to the rich tapestry of your worldwide experiences. And maybe this is your first in Scotland, I don't know. But thanks for coming on today, Conleth, and Buona Festa, of course. It's the Festa de San... Well, how would you say it in Italian? Conleth, I don't know. The same word, probably, I imagine. But have a nice day, and hope you enjoy your feast at Patrono Feasty.
Right. Thank you, John. And there. Big hello to everyone in Scotland.
Will do. God bless the good work.